Hello, everyone. I'm Troy Dodds, and welcome to the On the Record podcast presented by The Western Weekender. On this podcast, I'm joined by special guests who all have such great stories to tell about Penrith and the role they've played in our city. They are Penrith stories told by Penrith's people. Today, my special guest is Jim Penman. Now, Jim may not be from Penrith, but locals will certainly know his name and his business. As the owner of Jim's Group, he's built one of the most recognised franchising businesses on the planet, and many of his franchises, of course, are right here in Penrith. It is an incredible business story with plenty of twists and turns along the way. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
First question we always ask, you weren't from Penrith, so where and when were you born? Where did you grow up?
Well, I'm ashamed wasn't even born in Australia. I was born in the UK. But my mother's an Australian and she was visiting, and she met my father when she was hitchhiking. So came to Adelaide when I was 3. Lived went to Sydney for a year at the age of 14, and then ever since then in Melbourne.
Okay, and what was your childhood like? Tell me about parents, siblings.
Well, second of 4 children. Second child tends to be the rebel, so I guess that's me. I'm a bit more unorthodox my family standards. I don't know what you say about parents. Very at-home mother, very devoted. My father pretty fierce. Not untypical of a kid growing up in the 50s and 60s, I guess.
And I know you were born David, of course, so we know you as Jim. Where does the that come from that you went with Jim, and is that from a young age or more so in business?
Well, my legal name's David James. I don't know. It was kind of a way of breaking free of my childhood and taking a bit more of a macho sort of thing. I mean, women tend to like David, in my experience, but Jim is very, very Australian. So when I left school and left home, I was actually working on a farm for a while, for a few months after I left school, and there was a young kid there about my age called David. So I said, "Oh, call me Jim." So I got used to it.
There you go, and of course now we know that name very, very well. You went through high school, of course, then to La Trobe University, PhD in history, and like many, you needed a part-time job, and you started a side business mowing lawns. Now, in your book, this chapter is called The Accidental Gardener, so I'm guessing that gardening, mowing lawns wasn't necessarily a passion per se. You fell into it.
Well, actually, it's something I've always liked doing. I've actually been gardening since I was 8 years old. Apart from about 4 years of my later running to move to Melbourne, I've always had a gardening business. I started way even before I started university, just
Okay.
just doing, and then I bought a mower a few years later. But it's kind of I do like being outside. I enjoy gardening. In fact, this weekend I'll be up at my farm and I'll be mowing the lawn and I'll be digging vegetables and planting nuts and stuff. To me, that's a hobby. I just love green things. I love being outside. It's very important too. I mean, it was a good job. It paid me, I got the equivalent of like $10 an hour back in the 1970s, which is
Mm.
very good money. I'd even bought my first house as a student out of my lawn mowing. But I also like it, and it's very healthy. I mean, it's physically active. I had a franchisee just recently. He'd done 1 month. He'd lost 7 kilos. I
Yeah,
mean,
wow.
it's a great job. And gardeners are known as being one of the happiest professions too. They do surveys. Gardeners come right at the top, and lawyers tend to go down somewhere near the bottom. So there you are.
And how did you build your client base in those early days?
Well, I just basically put leaflets and then local papers to a certain extent. But it was very easy. I mean, look, I didn't know anything about business, but what I did have was I had a huge asset that I was really passionate about doing jobs well. I just I just have this thing that let a client down is really distressing. It goes far beyond any financial consideration. I mean, if I see a you know edge of a lawn and there's
Mm.
one blade of grass left, it's to me it's like having this beautiful fashion model with a big ugly red sore. It's just intolerable, or to let a client down or forget them. So I had this absolute fanaticism about quality and service, and I find it very, very easy to get clients and keep them and get referrals and so forth.
And in 1982, of course, you decided to do this full time. So where did that sort of transition happen? That this was no longer a hobby. This has become a pretty successful business. That's as you said, that's helping you buy a house and really setting you up.
Well, Troy, I'd love to say it was a decision. It was more an act of desperation. What actually happened was that I got into a financial mess, actually. I was trying to expand the business part-time a bit, and I lost everything and got deeply in debt. It was just stupidity. I was lazy and dumb and trusted the wrong person and everything else. But look, I had always intended to be an academic. I had this idea about the way society works and how you could improve it and what was going wrong. And in terms of the biology of history, I had a very radical idea and I wanted to pursue it. That was really my passion. But nobody's going to give me a job because I had a PhD in history, which is about one of the most useless things apart from a PhD in psychology or in sociology you could possibly have. So there was no prospect of any sort of employment. And what I wanted to do was to pursue my research. But to do that would require an awful lot of money because it's all to do with genetics and hormones and so forth, and what we now call epigenetics. So I just turned to the only thing I knew, which was mowing lawns, and I launched up full time. And that was in just December 1982.
And it doesn't take long actually before things start going pretty well for you. In the mid 1980s, I guess we get the first inclination of what's to come because you start selling off some of your rounds because you basically
Yes.
got too many clients.
Yeah, that's right. I found that because I was so good at picking up clients, I could get, see. It's not just when somebody rings you. It's not just a case of you. First of all, you ring them back fast. You get in there when you say you will. You do a superb job, and I could go in. There's actually on our website. There's a video of me going in and cutting grass that's a foot high and cutting it clean. And I could do edges. I was really good at edges, so I could do a really immaculate job. People would say to me things like, "I never knew my lawn could look this good." So it was because I was looking after clients so well, I built my client base very, very fast and a bit of advertising and stuff. I actually was a kind of a surprise. What actually happened was that I intended to I actually failed my PhD. It was just too radical. And I was mowing lawns full time. And there was no point to it at that stage. And then my supervisor said, well, if you rewrote the methodology explanation, you probably get it. But I was so busy that I didn't have time. But then I thought, well, I might as well do this. So I thought, okay, let me sell off my customer base. And it took me a while to find a buyer. I did it through the Age, the local paper. And while I was arranging to sell my client base, I kept on getting more clients. And by the time I'd sold my first lot of customers, I had another lot of customers already ready to go. So I sold that group off. And then I had a third lot of customers. They still kept on building. So I sold three lawn mowing grounds in very quick succession and took some time off and finished my PhD and actually got it. And then I thought I'm making more money from selling lawn mowing grounds than I am from actually doing the grass myself and putting on subbies and so forth. So I focused on that. And I had subcontractors to help me. So I did that for a few years.
Yeah, and I guess that is the start of what ultimately comes, which is in the late '80s. You start selling Jim's Mowing franchises. Did you know much about the franchising world at all? And I guess in that period, franchising is kind of mainly all about restaurants. And I don't know if there was too many selling lawn mowing franchises around the world.
Well, there was one actually, and that was VIP, which is based in Adelaide. And I vaguely heard about them. But look, to be honest, I couldn't see the point of it. I couldn't see why a person would buy a franchise. Why wouldn't they just buy the customers? But when I heard about VIP, I thought, well, it's interesting. But they're in Adelaide. So that's not going to affect me. I mean, nobody could do it interstate. And then they came to Melbourne, and I basically panicked. I really thought these guys would crush me. They had about 250 franchisees in those days, which was very big. It was huge, and they had all these offices and logos and all the fancy stuff. Didn't have a clue. The only thing I knew about franchising was what I read about from McDonald's.
Hmm.
I read a book called Behind the Arches, so I knew something of the principles and the idea that you look after franchisees well. So I rang up the state manager for VIP and offered just to help build VIP. I said, I'll just give you all my customers and good rate and I hope you build up VIP. And he said, no, I don't want to do that. So I thought I might as well compete. So I crashed the franchise expo, which was that year, 1988. I just went in, took off my badge they gave you because I didn't want to know who I was. Went up to the stand and said, I'm very interested in VIP. Can you tell me? So they told me about it. So, and then the state manager came in and kicked me out. He said, "That's Jim Penman. Don't tell him anything else."
Well, you learn enough tricks to get you going anyway. We
Oh, I
all
learned
make
a lot
mis-
from him. Yeah,
Yeah.
I give full credit to Bill Viss. He was the pioneer, not me. I just looked at what he did and said, "Hmm, well, good system, benefits, but I reckon I can do something that'll help franchisees more."
We all make mistakes in business, particularly in the early days. I'm guessing there was a few bumps in the road early on.
Oh, monumental crashes and stuff. I mean, I had no idea that this mowing thing would work back in the 80s. I tried to get a tourist resort going. That was a pathetic failure. I had no idea what I was doing. I've done various things. I've tried to run different ventures, all of which failed, like uh, mower shop and computer sales and all kinds of things. What do you call it? Trade exchanges, done a couple of those. I've just tried all kinds of stuff. And I know what I know. I'm pretty good at mowing lawns myself, and running a service type franchise is very similar with its cleaning or mowing. So you stick to what you know. That's one of the biggest lessons. But it looks very hard too. I choose the wrong people. I don't have any particular knack for choosing good. They actually come through the trick through the system, usually my franchisees or franchisors. But it's very hard to find great people, and I'm not very competent. Troy, there's so many things I'm not good at. I'm not a particularly good manager. I'm not good with figures or anything. I've never done a business plan in my life, except for the give something to the bank to keep them happy.
Sure.
I'm just not particularly skilled at most things. So you've got to find people who've got those abilities.
You mentioned the McDonald's example, and obviously one of the keys to their success as they grew was consistency. So I'm guessing that you took that into business in terms of franchises as well. You wanted them to be caring for clients the same as you did, and that would help you build.
Yes, exactly right. It's this obsession that continues, and still continues. I deal with customer complaints on a daily basis. I mean, you've got to understand, we've got close to, I don't know, best part of a million leads a year. Every complaint, every poor survey that comes back, I personally look at. If any customer complains more than once about a problem that's not fixed, it comes to me. So I'm very carefully involved, and I'm always planning and trying to change things and do better training and better software. How can we improve service? And that's what's actually happened. It's not a case of just setting a system up and letting it run. You're always fiddling with it. And one of the things that we check most strongly is the level of complaints. Now, in pre-franchise days when I had subbies, it was a terrible business. For every like 100 leads, I get 100 complaints. Roughly speaking, a million complaints as leads, not turning up, particularly that kind of thing. And then I franchised and I got better people and we started emphasizing it. So it dropped down to about 5%. And then we started looking at complaints and monitoring them and giving feedback. And then we put a survey system in place about 10 years ago. And about 30% of our clients respond to a survey. And we just keep on changing things. Now, the actual level of complaints now is a fraction of a percent. It's more than a 99% improvement. And we've got plans for software over the next year or so. I believe we can cut that down to less than half of what it is now. So we're just constantly driving down the level and then set up training systems. And I did the first 2 hours of that training we have one this week actually. So on Monday morning at 9 o'clock, get out and I taught customer service really hard. I really pushed the point again and again and all this stuff what they've got to do and what consequences they don't. And I'm really passionate about customer service. But the
Yeah.
other thing too, though, and it's even more important, or just as important for franchising, is you've got to look after your franchisees.
Hmm.
That's what McDonald's is pretty good at. They're a very good franchisor. They also got very good staff training, but I admire them as a company. And we do the same thing. I'm focused obsessionally on my franchisees. Every one of them has my phone number, my email address, and I not only give it to them, but I tell them again and again, you've got to ring me. If you've got any problems, contact me. Don't let it go. I'm going to send you a letter in a month to see how you're going. You respond to me, or I'll feel very offended if you don't. And they do contact me. Several people a day would contact me about something. So I'm always knowing what's going on. What's happening? How can we improve? Why is somebody failing? Do we make a poor selection? Could we train them better? Could we have better software? What can we do to help my franchisees succeed? And we look at things like attrition rate very carefully. What is your chance of being in business in 12 months? That's a particularly strong one. And we found, for example, that when we put a very good training program in place, our attrition rate dropped from 17% to 10.5% first year, and it's stayed around about that ever since, got up a little bit since then. So if you're going into business like lawn mowing or cleaning as an independent, your chance of being in business within 12 months is between 5 and 10%. And that, you can look it up on the internet. That's much better. With us, at the moment, 88%. But that's not good enough. Why isn't it 90%? Why isn't it 95%? How can we do better?
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on your penchant for being very, very meticulous in communication and whatnot. But I just want to go back. When did you start to say, well, hang on, this is working here. This is becoming successful. And then I guess a two-part question: when did it start going well beyond Melbourne and interstate?
Well, I had no idea about this thing actually. At the beginning, somebody asked me right at the beginning. They said, "If it works out, how many franchisees could you have one day?" And I said, "Well, if it works out well, maybe as many as 100." Of course, we've just passed 5,300 or something, latest figures. I was surprised. I never even thought of going interstate. I really thought this was something that was Melbourne only. People just got interested. Well, I had a secret weapon actually, and it really was pretty simple. In those days, this is way before the franchising code. You didn't give out the details of current franchisees, but I used to do that. I got all my franchisees on the list, and I put them with their names and their phone numbers. If anybody came to talk to me, they say to me, "Well, why would I buy from you? You're running your business from your basement. You got nothing. You've only got a few franchisees. This other company's interstate. They've got a lot more. They've got its fancy offers. Why would I buy a business from you?" And I said, "Well, there are some differences in the way you run things, but here's a list of my franchisees with contact numbers. I want you to go and I want you to ring as many as you can and ask them what it's like. And then I want you to go to VIP and ask them." And I knew they wouldn't give them because I knew that their people weren't as happy. That was a simple thing. It was very, very basic. The office, everything, what I wear was just ordinary stuff. I still bought my clothes from Kmart, apart from the uniforms. But my franchisees were happy. And I really focused on making them happy. I just did everything I could to make them delighted. And I showed that I cared about them, which I do. It's genuinely the saddest thing in my life to see a franchisee fail. I never become accustomed to it. I hate it, and I'll do anything I possibly can. We got a franchisees failing in one division. We just had a case recently where a franchisee wasn't one division's not doing particularly well, and we changed them to another division, and I'm paying a whole sum of money to get all their signage and stuff done because they just don't want them to fail. It's a very personal, emotional thing. It's not. I don't know. It's not rational. I don't. My wife says I'm a nutcase. She says I've got Alzheimer's or something. So not Alzheimer's. What do you call it? Asperger's, not
Asperger's,
Alzheimer's.
yeah.
Definitely not senile. I've got Asperger's because I'm ignorant of social clues, but I'm a very obsessional character.
You mentioned divisions there, so obviously you went away from just Jim's mowing, which means that you went away from what you knew. You mentioned earlier you could mow a lawn to look perfect, probably win a competition somewhere as the best mowed lawn. But then you started getting into other areas that you might not have known, much about in terms of industries. Was that a difficulty for you? And do you seek advice about those industries? Or how do you sort of decide, well, I'm now going to do Jim's dog wash, for example?
Well, we don't so much seek advice. We seek good people. So we find somebody who's from that industry who knows the industry. That's how it works. Most of them, great majority, don't actually come from me at all. They come from somebody else approaching me. So somebody will just email me, and I'm very good on emails. If you email me, jim@jims.net, I'll answer it, or I'll see it. If you're trying to market me something, I probably won't. I'll just delete it. But if you come forward with an idea for a new division, then I'm available and I'll talk about it. Say, what's your background? What's your business background? What do you know about this business? I mean, how does it work? What sort of hourly rates can you offer? How do you market it? This kind of thing. So you find somebody who knows what they do. But in actual fact, things like mowing and cleaning and dog wash and pest control, they're very similar. Somebody wants a service done, they contact you, you go and offer it, you give a quote, you do it. The software involved and the systems and the contracts are all remarkably similar.
Yeah, I guess there's the actual business side of it isn't all that different. Is there anything you won't do? I mean, as we mentioned, you've got Jim's Dog Wash, Jim's IT services. I don't know how many divisions you've got now, but that you pretty much do everything.
Well, yeah, there are limits. On Monday night this week, I was having dinner with some friends, and one of them said, "Why don't you do Jim's Airbnb?" And I said, "No, we're not going to." He said, "No, it's a great business. We should do it. I'll do the research and stuff." I said, "No, it's outside of my field of expertise. You have no idea how complicated this is. It's a different system, different software. We stick to what we know. The things that we do are very similar in you don't go into areas. I wouldn't. I mean, like fast food, for example. I'd never touch fast food because you cannot compete with people who do this that are so good at what they do. But we are good at what do we? We're actually very narrowly focused. It doesn't seem like it, I know. But the difference between mowing and cleaning and dog wash and fencing, they're all very similar in the way they operate. The same kinds of customer service issues, the same kind of generic training. Very similar.
You've got a lot of franchises here in our area in Western Sydney. I've used a couple of them myself. Car detailer at one point, and I think your mowing services as well. How involved are you in the early days of a franchise owner coming on board?
Well, if it's a franchisee, just bear in mind we put on, best part of 1,000 people, so I don't get personally involved in it. What happens is I I speak to generic the training that we do. We have a 3 day course.
Hmm.
In fact, today is no, actually yesterday was the final day of the 3 day course. So I give two talks. One at the beginning about customer service, service to franchisees, the franchisees' rights and what we do for them. And then at the end of it, I do a talk on earning income, how to get more leads, how to increase your value rate. Those are my two talks. I also make a point of trying to greet every franchisee personally. I don't shake their hands because if I do, I get ill all the time. I get colds and things. But I bump fists. We have a special kind of bump fist with a raised thumb. It's like an OK sign with a bump fist. So that's what we do. So I go and try and greet everybody at least once, hopefully more than that. And then we have a session called Ask Jim on the Tuesday night when they can ask questions and stuff. And it's quite a lot of fun. Like you tell jokes and stuff. And they ask me all the outrageous things. The more outrageous, the better, and they'll get prizes. So we do that kind of stuff. I try and get to know them. I try and get to some contact with them personally. And I say, I'm going to write to you in a month's time. I want you to respond. I put my phone number, my email address on the board. I say, you contact me if you need to. I really push it hard. So I just try and encourage them. So I can't individually ring every franchisee because there's just too many. But I really encourage them to respond to me. And when they do come to me, I respond very quickly and as helpfully as I can. And sometimes doing quite drastic things. I'll massively bump up their advertising, for example, or change them to a different division or to a different franchise or arrange them to get jobs from other divisions, which we can do. We call it cross-divisional work. So if you haven't got enough in your division, you can do some other work for another division if you're qualified. And I just try and be available and try and be there and show that I'm concerned for their welfare.
I think that being available thing is a really interesting thing because you did mention, and we've done it to set this up. An email to you is normally responded to within, 20 or 30 minutes. I would say that 99% of people in your position would not even be reading emails that are going to them. They'd have a fake email address almost, and then an email address only a few key people know about. Why have you wanted to remain so close to the day-to-day operations of the businesses?
Yeah, I think it's a colossal mistake people don't respond to their emails. I cannot comprehend it. Just to give you an example, we wanted some major consulting work done about a year ago, and we approached 5 major companies with basically something that would have been worth, six-figure contract. Not one replied. One replied months later. Just pathetic. because they don't even read their emails. Now, I find emails is really easy. I would I even check my junk mail. I do not trust the junk mail system. I check it regularly because quite often it'll be one of my franchisees who gets held up, and I believe I'm not going to listen to one of my people. It's incredibly useful to listen to your emails. Every franchisee knows they can reach me, and it's not just. I mean, I want to help them. I really do. They're kind of like my family in a way. I'm very invested in my franchisees, but it's not just the fact that I can help one person. I can look at it and say, what's going wrong? How did we make a mistake? Why is this person having these problems? How can we change the system? How can we change the contracts? How can we change the manual? How can we change the technology? How can we change the training for franchisors? What do we need to do to make this better? And it's that obsessional listening to my key people, clients to a large extent, even I don't phone them, but email, but particularly my franchisees. What's going wrong? What can we do better? It's gold. As a CEO of the company, it's so important for me to know what's really going on. And what's really important in gyms is not some great plans we make in head office. It's what happens when an individual franchisee goes out there, contacts the client, satisfies the client, makes good income. What can we do to improve that? So you have to be involved and you have to listen. And honestly speaking, the amount of time I do certain kinds of jobs, like I'm the only person in the company can delete complaints. If a franchisee does something wrong and they can show that, sorry, there's a complaint, the franchisee can show they did everything right. The customer says didn't ring. I said, okay. Franchisee sends in their proof that they've rung them and proof they sent a text within 2 hours. That's deleted. Or if they make a mistake, something's gone wrong, they go back, they fix the job, client's satisfied, here's the evidence, delete it. So I do that. That's one of my jobs. I also deal with these high-level complaints, so I do those kind of things. But apart from that, just being open to emails from everybody, including marketing, everybody else, it probably takes me something like maybe 20 minutes a day. And I get well over 100 emails a day, but it's not that big a job to deal with those things. I'm astonished people don't do it. I find it extraordinary. I mean, people come to me, they say they've worked for a company for 10 years. There was like 500 people and they've never seen the CEO. Now, I'm very, very contactable, but not like that. But I also wander around. We get about 100 staff. I wander around the office every day saying hello to people. How's things going? What's going on? I might sit down and play chess with somebody or something like with the group in IT or something, just briefly, always on time, so I don't distract them too much. But just, and then we have a staff lunch, which today at 1 o'clock, I go to the staff lunch and we have each department takes it in turn to run the lunch and they have a little quiz thing and that mixes everybody up and I'm there too. So you've got to be in contact with people.
I guess many CEOs just fall into that trap of being told what they want to hear by people that are feeding them information, and they then miss out on everything that's actually happening in their company, and then it's too late to fix it when they realise the truth.
Yeah, they've got no idea. There's a wonderful comedy series, Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister, British, many years ago. Now, one of the things most striking about that is I mean, I'm always for the minister in a way, I suppose. I don't know if anybody else is, but he doesn't know what's going on because everything he does is dealt with through his senior civil servant. So he has no idea. If he wants an efficiency improvement, all he's got to do is ask them, what can we do? He's got no control because he doesn't know what's going on. Now, if I was the minister, I'd be wandering through the departments and talking, what's going on? How's your work going? How could it be improved? You know, how's your boss treating you? I do that all the time too. Going into the conference center, I talk to the staff and say, how are you being looked after? You know, are the franchisees, the trainees being nice to you? I ask that kind of question all the time. How's the food? You've got to understand what's happening. Because I'm not the great person at doing things. If I need something to be done, I've got people who are much better than me at doing that. But I need to know that something has gone wrong so that I can say, hey, we need to change this.
How much, obviously everyone brings people into their business sometimes that don't work out. They come with the best of intentions. How much effort do you put in to say, I can turn this person around, I can turn this particular franchisee around? Or sometimes you just have to say, this is, we've got it wrong here, let's just drop this person.
Look, we'll do everything we can. Sometimes it's not not the fault of the franchisee. Sometimes the system is wrong. I'll give you one example. We've got a division called Jim's Pet Patrol, which is to do with things like walking dogs and dog care and picking up poop from the which sounds all gross, but they got a way of doing it, which is really good. And some franchisees are actually doing quite well, but a lot aren't. And it's just got to the stage where I'm not prepared to have any more franchises sold because the chance of failure is too high. So this is the case I was talking about beforehand. This is a pet patrol person, couldn't do it. I said, okay, look, we've got the money for the thing. We'll pay for all your costs, all your signage, all your training, everything else. We'll just pay for it and you go and do cleaning because I know they can get working cleaning. So you've got to somehow recognize that it's not their fault. But sometimes the franchisee just doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Sometimes they just don't give good service. Now we counsel them and we send warning letters and we do retraining, and I personally get involved in this. But if somebody in the end won't listen, they won't look after their customers properly, it's bad for the company and it's bad for them. And sometimes you just have to say you've got to go. It's only a top small fraction, but it's very painful. It really hurts.
And I guess also what would happen is that some franchisees don't share your passion for being so meticulous. And I know you mentioned earlier, how quickly did they reply? How quickly did they send the text? Because from a customer point of view, that customer obviously is normally an impatient customer. Most customers are impatient. They want their lawn mowed. They want something fixed. So the longer you leave it, the more likely you're not going to get the customer, and the more likely the customer's going to question whether they're going to go with the right person.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the constant battle that we've always got to be, we're indoctrinating and we're pushing very, very hard. But one of the things that's really humbling is that to a large extent, my kinds of values are very widespread within Jim's group. This passion for customers, it's like if you're in communist China or something, and they're brainwashing you all the time. They keep on telling you the same thing. In the end, you tend to absorb the culture, and Jim's culture is very, very customer service minded. It becomes part of the way they think. They get it from myself. And I'm a reasonably, charismatic individual. I'm the face that launched, 5,000 trailers or whatever. I mean, it's I have this, and I speak quite well. I'm a reasonably good public speaker. It's one of my very few talents. So I get this across, and then I talk to them about it, and it's emphasized again. And then the franchisors coach them, and they ring them, ideally weekly, at least in the beginning, and they keep on pushing the point. So in actual fact, most of my franchisees do have a pretty strong customer service aspect. But not only that, but you would find there's an element of care for franchisees, which is very widespread amongst my franchisors. We really care about franchisees, and that's again when you do franchisor training, then we really hit that business of looking after what's in the interest of how do we make them happy? How is that our moral responsibility? And we had a guy called Brian Duckett many years ago. We had a national conference in Queensland, and the franchisors were there. And this guy had been involved in dozens and dozens of different franchising operations over the years. And he said, Jim, I've never seen anything like what you do at Jim's. And it's this genuine care for franchisees, which comes from the heart. Again, not universal, but generally speaking, franchisors are people who really care about other franchisees. And what's more than that? What you tend to find too is that franchisees tend to abide this thing. So you often hear stories about how people get mentored. And somebody who's an experienced franchisee will just take the time to help a new person and even spend like half an hour on the phone to them at night, just counseling them. We've got unpaid franchisee mentors who give up their time just to help other people. And when we had terrible problems in Melbourne with our lockdown. It was a disgusting episode. We were locked out of work for 2 months, and there were franchisees who were really desperate. And what so heartening. I mean, it was a terrible time. It was very distressing. I was very angry about it. But what was wonderful was that so many franchisees just volunteered to help others. We had one girl who was actually a student, so she had no government support. She was forbidden. She couldn't watch dogs for 2 months. She had no income allowed by the state government. And there were franchisees who were giving her food vouchers and stuff. We actually lent her a bit of money, and we said, if you can come and stay at the conference center if you get evicted. But that was so wonderful. I remember a test and tag guy ringing me up and said, "Gee, I've got no income, but I'm financially secure. Who needs help?" Because that was so moving. And that's a
Mm,
very widespread attitude. And I tell people that too. I said, when you go to meetings, and you've got to go to meetings, got to come, be part of the community. So important. When you go there, you'll find other franchisees who really want to help you. And with time, you'll do the same thing yourself. So culture is incredibly important. And it's very hard. You can change the rules and the contracts, but the culture really matters so much. There's a wonderful book called Good to Great,
yes.
Jim Collins, and he did studies of organization.
Yep.
They tried to work out what was the key thing behind these long-term successful companies, and they really couldn't think of anything that was so different. But then they said one thing, Auntie, each of these long-term successful companies, the one like Hewlett Packard as an example,
Mm.
had a culture which was very widely shared from the CEO to the mailroom, the way they put it. And people who came in either adopted the culture or they got spat out, they quit or they got fired. And Jim's is a very culture-driven company.
On that, what comes across is you are so passionate about happiness and well-being, and that is something that was mentioned a lot in your book as well, Jim's book, of course. That's what it was called. When it came out a few years ago. You are legitimately passionate about this, and I think you're legitimately passionate about the human psyche of what makes people happy and what motivates people as well. That seems to come through.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I'd love to write a book called something like the Health and Happiness Handbook. There is a science to happiness, and it's not people think. People think characteristically, if I just get more money, I can buy a better car and a bigger house and better clothes and more expensive holidays and make me happy. It's actually pathetically untrue. Happiness, if you don't have enough money, if you're struggling, really struggling, then you're going to be miserable. Past about average Australian income, it makes surprisingly little difference. And what matters though too, far more than what you buy. Um, Theodore Roosevelt said, social comparison is a thief of joy. So just trying to spend more than somebody else to look better is a really bad way to spend money. Spending on experiences like time with friends and so forth is better. The best thing you can do with money is to give it away to a cause that you're personally involved with. That's what scientists find. So that's money. Then you can look at exercise. Exercise is hugely important. It's far better than any antidepressant. I do half an hour vigorous exercise every day, at least. I've just done a run on the treadmill. I'm going to play racquetball this afternoon. I also walk a lot. I average probably at least 10,000 paces. I don't measure it. And then food. You've got to have a good diet. I have a BMI of 22. I keep to that very closely by myself every day. Try and eat vegetables, fruits, those kind of things too. Then you've got social relations. You've got to have a good community. And my community is my family. I absolutely adore my wife of 23 years. I got 10 kids and I'm pretty fond of them too. And I was just going to see them, some of them last night with one of my grandchildren, my grandsons, and that's great. And community at work too. Um, so happiness is, and then time spent outside. I love working outside, being outside in contact with nature. These are all keep your debt under control, don't owe too much, don't commute too much. These are all principles that have been shown to create happiness and health. And I have to say, I'm one of the happiest men alive. I don't think there's anybody on the face of the earth who's happier than me. And it's a very calm, just a peaceful, happy, fulfilled life that I got. It's absolutely wonderful. And there's a science to it.
Mm.
And the point of this too, obviously I'm fairly well off, but I don't live that way. I buy my clothes from Kmart. In fact, until just recently, I've never had a new car in my life. And mostly they're wrecks worth about 10
Yeah.
grand. So I don't spend money on myself. There is a science to being happy.
Mm. Y-
But the interesting thing about it, you don't have to have a lot of money. Everything I'm talking about is just as capable of being done by one of my mowing franchisees. It really is. They've got everything. They've got the potential. It's health, it's outside, it's fitness, um, it's good social relations, not only with your family, but also with your fellow franchisees. It's having a flexible lifestyle. It's keeping commuting to a minimum. It's you don't have to spend a lot of money to look good when you're mowing lawn because people don't expect you to drive a Mercedes or something like that. So
mm.
so you don't have to do that kind of chasing of stuff. So it's something that anybody can do. And there's a simple science to it. I'd love to actually set up a kind of a business to do with health. That's my great passions. I'd love to. I was just thinking that this morning. I'm listening to this book called How Not to Die, which is all about plant-based eating and health. And I'd love to set up a venture where it's a sort of a really healthy sort of restaurant, but also health advice and counseling and get people to, you know, have a sort of like a personal trainer for health who coaches you about exercise and then prepare meals that you can heat up and use at home and you can eat really healthy food. That's a huge health to not even longevity,
Mm.
but living a long, healthy life. You see, I'm 71, I'm about to turn 72. I've got a lot to do in the next 20 years. I cannot afford not to be healthy. I don't believe in retirement. And I don't think most people need to retire. We've got guys in their 70s still going out there mowing great lawns. There's one bloke just had his 80th birthday. Why do we need to retire for? We've got so much to contribute.
Yeah. We learnt a lot about you and a lot about what you're saying here in that book that came out a few years ago. I wanted to ask you about that because I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but is that potentially the most vulnerable you have been? Because you also, you wanted the author to go out and speak to people, if I recall this correctly, who didn't necessarily like you, who would be considered, an almost a business enemy of sorts. You wanted the true story to get out there. This was not going to be just a Jim Love show per se.
Yeah, I gave them all the contacts actually. There was somebody who actually took me to court some years ago. There were a franchisor who I felt wasn't doing the right job, and so I terminated them. And I offered to give them fair price for their business, and they decided to go to court and sue me. In the end, I ended up settling with them, and I gave them what I offered in the first place. They did not like me at all. So there's various people who disliked me. My sister that I fired because she wasn't doing a good job. She's not a great fan of mine. There's other people who don't. I gave them all the details. Most of them would not speak to her. So I don't know why, but I had the opportunity and they didn't do it.
Now, you mentioned COVID before. I did want to bring that up because I thought that was a pretty crazy time, and you were at the forefront of it, you mentioned, but it wasn't just in Victoria. There was other states as well that had some of these bizarre rules sometimes where a lawn mowing person couldn't do their job despite the fact that they'd be by themselves and outdoors. It was a pretty crazy period, and you must have seen some significant hurt during that time.
Yeah. Well, your government was a lot less lunatic than ours, I must say. I mean, we had the worst lockdown of any city in the world, and yet our death rate from COVID was higher than any other state. So I mean, don't get me on about our beloved ex-premier, Chairman Dan, but look, it was stupid. It was really annoying. What actually happened? I mean, this is a state business, I know, but what actually happened is that the Department of Health and Human Services, which is the Victorian government department that deals with this, put out a very detailed, about a 5-page statement about healthy living and what you could do, what you couldn't do. And right at the top of it, there's independent sole operators can operate safely because they're not in contact with anybody else. You can mow somebody's lawn. You don't have to come within 5 meters of them.
Yeah.
You get paid electronically. There's no reason for contact. So I think that was said. That was sensible. That was the best advice they had. Then the following Wednesday, it came out on about the Saturday, following Wednesday, the Premier gets up at a press conference and says, yeah, but you can't get your lawns mowed or your houses clean. Now, that's a really interesting statement because what he's doing, he's thinking of his affluent, inner suburban, elite, woke, snobby, I can't say too much bad things about them, people who he relates to, all the inner suburban woke greenies, and okay, the people that his fan club. He did not think about 100,000 plus people who were going to lose their livelihood and their jobs. So he just gets up at a press conference and said this. He probably had no idea what his own department had said. But of course, being the Premier, the last thing you could say, I've made a mistake. So he just said, okay, you're all shut down. It was just outrageous. And you had people, council workers working in groups doing the same job that we've forbidden to do as individuals. You could have people going into a dog salon, mixing with others to get their dog done, but you couldn't have somebody come and do your dog at your place with no personal contact. It was completely senseless. There was no point. There was no medical advice. We took the state government to court doing a test case and said, okay, you've got your own law says you can't deny a person a livelihood without good reason. Okay, what was your reason for shutting down the independent operators? Do you know what their answer is? We don't have to tell you. We don't have to give you any reason. Now, guess why they said that? Because they had no reason.
Mm.
There was no medical advice. There was no scientific advice. They had no reason. It was just something that the Premier thought, hey, I can look good. If 100,000 plus Victorians lose their business, if a few more people commit suicide, what's that to me as long as I look good? Sorry, I'm getting a bit anxious. I'm getting angry again. But
Yeah.
it was horrible. The kind of
Farcical.
distress. I had a young kid, young in their early 20s, who actually committed suicide during one of these lockdowns. And I've seen the distress. I know people personally, because I know my franchisees. I know two men who lost their homes, their families, their wives as a direct result of that trauma that went on at that time. I know the hurt that it caused. And I was talking to franchisees on a daily basis. It was disgusting and it was so unnecessary.
Yeah, just a terribly sad and, as I say, farcical situation. There's no question about that. Can I ask what the future holds for not necessarily yourself, but for the group, Jim's group? What can we expect? You mentioned tech a couple of times there. I imagine tech is the biggest changer of your business in terms of acquiring customers and how quick you can be in getting back to people, but also how you can monitor how the business as a wider group is going.
Yeah, you're right. Tech is huge. The kind of stuff that we do now, you couldn't do without technology. It just simply cost too much. We tried in the early stages and it was just terrible. But for example, we have multiple franchisees covering an area, and most of them are usually busy. So our system actually allows us to know which franchisee is available. There might be 30 people covering the area, and only one is able to do the job, and we know who that one is. And it's not just where they work, it's what services they cover, what times of the day they'll respond to calls. So it's very detailed. There's a whole system involved. The whole business of the customer service and surveys. I mean, about 30% of our clients respond to surveys, and those people are gold. They really are. They're so important to us because when we get this feedback by asking people about it, then we can actually find out the problems, we can deal with the issues, and we can come back. In the early days of gyms, it was actually quite difficult to find work. We actually had people knocking on doors because we were trying to grow fast, knocking on doors to try and get customers. You know, last year we knocked back over 200,000 leads. And not only
Mm.
that, but we actually give back money to the franchisee because they put money into the advertising every month, like usually about 150 bucks. Sometimes we can't even spend it because they're so busy the year round. We've got about $90,000 in the dog wash account now because they're all flat out booked months ahead, and we've got all this money that we can't keep.
Yeah.
So we've gone back to them and said, what do you want? So we're going to run a conference and stuff. So the difference between the situation where with more advertising per franchisee, we were short of work, to one with less advertising per franchisee, we're actually overloaded with work in so many areas. That's extraordinary. And that's the culture of the company, but it's also the technology. And down the track of it, by within um, hopefully, in the next 6 months, we're going to have a system with a program we use internally called Jim's Jobs, where if a franchisee doesn't actually contact the client within 2 hours, we get a message back and we can follow it and say, what's gone wrong? And we
Mm.
pause their leads. Why aren't you contacting them? What's happened? So we want more and more stuff. We want a system that enables the client to book a job straight into a franchisee's diary. That would be so powerful. So when somebody rings us, they actually they can actually be given an appointment on the spot because we'll know where they are and we'll know how much time they've got. This it's technology is fabulous. It really is life changing in terms of what we can do. The changes that you'll see down the track of it will be magic. And our customer service, our complaint rate, I'm confident within the next couple of years we can see our complaint rate less than half of what it is now.
You're super passionate. We know that. Last question though: how would Jim Penman like to be remembered?
Well, I very much hope that gyms will survive me. One of the things I would like to do, we're going to start shortly, is put in a contract that Gyms Group can never be sold to anybody, majority share, without the written consent of the majority of franchisees. I really want to make that something that we do because one of the things I fear after I'm gone, somehow my heirs, which is basically my family, will will want to sell it. and then there's some greedy multinational come along and rip people off blind. And just that idea is absolutely appalling. I want gyms to survive with its culture. I've got a lot of children. I've got a couple of very good potential sons-in-law too, that I'm hoping will take a role, but it's set up in a way that hopefully just continue the culture. So that's very important to me. I've probably got about another 20 years to go, but I would hate something to happen after I'm gone. The other thing, even more so, is my research project, which is understanding the biology of human behavior. And I think we can do incredible things to help people live better lives. And this can affect, like Jim's group affects thousands, but this could affect billions, helping people to overcome problems like drug addiction. I think we understand. I've got a multi-million-dollar research project. We're spending about $4 million this year looking at the basic research into the effects of mild food restriction and how we can get the benefits of that to cope with things like addiction and obesity and various forms of mental illness and so forth too. I think we have a very, very good chance of doing something very major for the world.
Well, Jim, it's a fascinating story, and as you say, a long way still to go. We really appreciate you joining us, and all the best for whatever the future holds in that game of racquetball this afternoon.
Thanks, Troy. I'll probably lose, though. I'm not that good at racquetball.
Thanks, Jim. And I hope you enjoyed our chat. On the Record is produced by The Western Weekender. To hear future episodes and other Western Weekender podcasts, search Western Weekender wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure you hit subscribe. Check out westernweekender.com.au and we will see you next time.